Hello, Coach Jules here. So today I'm actually going to be doing something I didn't think I would do, and I'm going to give away like basically a lot of information for athletes. So it's not specific to vegan athletes. I know like I promote the plant-based diet quite a lot, but it is definitely not specific to vegan athletes. It is for all athletes in general. Okay, so let's begin with what an athlete requires. All of this is going to be mainly from a nutritional standpoint, so we're not going to talk too much about the training, but we will talk about timing and all this kind of stuff. So athletes, what do they require? They require muscle recovery. So there's going to be two types of muscle recovery, or maybe three, but let's break it down. Short-term recovery, long-term recovery, and then like the intermediate phase where you're kind of building and repairing. So muscle recovery, we need to dampen the inflammation, and we also need to make up for the nutrient depletion. So nutrient depletion, it could be anything from particular vitamins, antioxidants, minerals, but in general we're going to be talking about things like carbohydrates, filling up your muscles with energy. So most of us, we already know this stuff, but let's go through the basics, right? And then the other thing that a lot of people are unaware of is that your nervous system has to recover, and this is very important. Cool. And then we have nervous system recovery. So your nervous system and your muscles, they kind of like, they work in a team in terms of athleticism to produce force and movement and whatnot. And you have to remember, it's not just all about your muscles recovering, it's about your nervous system recovering. Yeah. So your nervous system is obviously going to also experience inflammation and nutrient depletion. And the nutrients are going to be a little bit more different to the ones with muscle. But the important one for muscles, remember, is glycogen. Yeah, glycogen is going to be the main nutrient to fuel your performance. So we need to make sure our muscles recover and our nervous system recovers. So we also need the ability to build new muscle. So building new muscle is kind of along the lines of recovery, but it's a little bit different. So this will be like, I guess, in your off season or leading up to competitions. The ability to effectively develop your nervous system, to train your nervous system. Then the ability to break down muscle fiber. So it is what it sounds like. Actually, the ability to lose a little bit of muscle, to be a little bit catabolic, which a lot of people are scared of. But trust me, this is essential if you're an athlete. Maybe not if you're a bodybuilder, like approaching like a competition sometime soon, but for an athlete, you need to be able to break down muscle. And most importantly, the ability to use fuel effectively, which is a lot more complicated than what it sounds. So the ability to use fat effectively, which doesn't mean going keto or eating a high-fat diet. There's actually better ways to do it. You can use fat more effectively from particular types of properly structured high-carb diets, and things like fasting, which we're going to get to later. Let's just go through the summary. The ability to use carbohydrates effectively, which is obviously fasting is going to come into it. High carb diet, that's also going to come into it. And just general good nutrition, good nutrition timing, good nutrition habits is going to make you able to use carbohydrates more effectively. And then being able to use protein more effectively as well. So we do this via protein diet, timing, enhancing the digestibility of protein, getting it within a specific window, not saying like 60 minutes, 30 minutes after the gym, and making sure that you find the balance between too much protein and too little protein. Okay, you're going to have issues for other ones. And then just some other things that are overlooked. So keeping stress-free, we can use, there we go, nutrition again for stress-free. Meditation, ensuring good sleep hygiene. This can also be enhanced via nutrition. We have a lot of phytomelatonin containing foods, so you don't have to pop melatonin if you're having sleep issues or whatever it is. And then obviously the time that you eat and your circadian rhythm is going to be largely dictated by your nutrition. And ensuring good gut health, because this is part of resting the nervous system. So I think like one of the main concerns with sleep is to recover your nervous system, right? So the less worked your nervous system is, the healthier your nervous system is, that generally the less sleep you're going to need. So the quicker you're going to recover. So let's go through all these one by one. So let's start off with inflammation, because I think the first point I said was we need to dampen the inflammation. So exercise is inflammatory by nature. It puts a good stress on the body called hormesis when programmed appropriately. So I mean, a lot of things happen when you exercise, like your blood pressure goes up, your heart rate goes up, which if you weren't exercising, this would be considered a bad thing. But we are stressing the body, and it's a good stress, and the stress is going to cause some damage to the body, but an appropriate amount of damage is going to encourage your body to adapt and get stronger, and it's healthy. All right. So the inflammation leads to and is caused by muscles being stressed, and muscles being stressed can lead to it can be a variety of things, right? So we have we have micro tears, macro tears. We don't want. That's considered as an injury. Exposed to acid, and like the acid in your body, your lactic acid, and lots of other like metabolic waste. So that's one of the first things first factors of inflammation. The second is that the inflammation also has a toll on your nervous system. So if your nervous system is fatigued, maybe your muscles are nice, big, functional, and strong, but the ability for your brain to send signals to your muscle is going to be diminished. And if the signal is cut or not sending properly to your muscles, then what's going to happen? You're not going to be able to recruit your muscles. Okay, it's like saying, okay, like I have a Lamborghini, but I don't have the key to turn it on. So what am I going to do with this Lamborghini? I can't go fast, right? So that's that. So the most important thing, in my opinion, for athletes is that we need to deal with this inflammation. But that's not to say to go overboard with anti-inflammatory supplements and antioxidants, which I'm going to elaborate on later. Okay, so a lot of us know that like inflammation is generally combated by particular type of antioxidants, which are anti-inflammatory, but we can actually find that this can be problematic for a lot of athletes. So we should give our body sufficient antioxidants, which are abundantly found mainly in plant foods, right? And here are some of the superstars. We have dark leafy greens. We have beetroot, which has been shown to not only provide your body with lots of antioxidants and prevent overtraining syndrome and enhance recovery, but actually helps to dilate particular blood vessels in, like, I guess, hard to reach places where blood doesn't always flow, to enhance recovery. So the more blood flow we get around the body, then the higher the ability we have to like exchange nutrients and wastes. Berries, same kind of thing. Fruits, honestly, all types of fruits. And then we have some superfoods like barley grass, amlaki, acai, cacao, and green tea. So you will want to experiment with these. You should listen to your body, listen to your tongue, see what it says, experiment and cycle through them, right? Variety is good, not too much variety. You should be able to figure out this yourself if you are mindful. So now too many antioxidants is going to cause this. It's going to give your body no incentive to recover, right? So for example, we had athletes a while ago superdosing vitamin C and vitamin E, right? Which are fantastic antioxidants. But if, too much of this is good, it's going to tell your body like, I don't need to produce my own antioxidants. I don't need to make the recovery happen myself. So this is not really going to be a problem if you're using natural sources of antioxidants like the ones I just listed. Maybe some of the superfoods that are just like got ridiculous amounts of antioxidants, if you use them in like a ridiculous excess, this might also impede your recovery because it's going to stop adaptation from occurring. So these are usually found in unnatural supplements, and usually people aren't at risk, but we do have times where people have particular maybe deficiencies or health conditions that require them to use supplements irrespective of exercise or not. So in general, you can maybe supplement 1 hour, 2 hours after training, and it seems to be okay that way. All right, but the best antioxidants are actually the antioxidants, funny enough, which stress your body and cause your body to produce more antioxidants. So we go back to the hormesis effect, right? So the hormesis effect is, this is a nutritional stress that causes your body to produce antioxidants, and the classics are green tea, which I supplement every day, and curcumin, and even like a lot of the different herbs like ginger and all this kind of stuff. But then again, for some people, especially if you have a bit of a funny gut and a funny immune system, maybe an attacked nervous system, it can again cause your body a bit too much stress, okay? In the same way that training too much can cause too much stress. Yeah, so you need to also trust your tongue. Like I wake up in the morning, and before I go to exercise, I smell the matcha that I'm about to drink, the green tea. Some days it doesn't smell good, some days it smells good. It's not that the smell is changing, it's that my body's saying I've had too much, or yes, today I want it. Okay, this takes practice. Okay, you can even taste it and just see what your response is to a particular nutrient. But then again, maybe for the first week, just eat it, whether you like the taste of it or not, and then see how you react to it from there. Because obviously, introducing a new flavor into your diet can lead to a little bit of aversion. And then finally, the final and possible most effective way to combat to tame inflammation from training is fasting, which a lot of people are scared of. So for this, I'm not going to give specific instructions because it can get very complicated, and it doesn't work for everyone depending on their lifestyle. Most people can easily and should do a 16 to 18 hour fast every day, and very effectively. But if you do choose to do this, please just break your fast with some kind of a raw fruit. Water, then raw fruit, right? So yeah, fasting is anti-inflammatory. People are a little bit scared of fasting because they think they're going to break down muscle. It's not really the case. It is the case if you're like a huge dude with lots of muscle, like a bodybuilder, you might lose a bit of muscle. But if you're training, generally no, and breaking down muscle is not necessarily a bad thing, which we're going to get to later. Okay, I'm not going to elaborate on that any further because it gets a little bit complicated. So the second point, the ability to build muscle and strengthen your nervous system. So, well, building muscle, the first thing you need to do is not eat, it's actually you need to train, right? So if your goal is for muscle mass, right, to gain muscle mass and bodybuilding purposes, then a bit of extra protein won't hurt. Now, I don't think eating extra protein is healthy. Actually, it's not that I don't think. I know eating extra protein is not healthy. It's associated with insulin resistance and, cardiovascular diseases, cancers, all this kind of stuff. Personally, I would focus more on the inflammation side of things. But if you're a professional bodybuilder, you can get away with a little bit of extra protein. Exercise does blunt the inflammatory effects of protein. So I think they had this one study where they found people consuming protein before and after exercise, and those that with or without exercise, those that were exercising had less brain inflammation. And it's honestly, a lot of the time, if you're a bodybuilder, this extra protein is just adding to dead weight. A big muscle is not necessarily a strong muscle, right? Strength is actually more of a nervous system thing. So if you're an athlete, you actually don't want to have big muscles. You want to be as strong as possible and as small as possible so you can be mobile, you can, be flexible, maintain your mobility, and so that you can move yourself, right? So it's harder to jump if you're carrying a lot of weight. So to become a stronger athlete, yes, fats and proteins are also needed, but honestly, not via supplementation. Not via supplementation if you have a well-balanced diet. You can experiment with this. You can use a protein shake. I would not recommend whey protein. I would not recommend a lot of plant-based proteins either. If I was to choose, you need to find something that has been tested for heavy metals. You do not use rice protein no matter what. I would say your best bet is pea protein. Soy protein is fantastic as well. Soy protein does not have an estrogenic or androgenic effect in the context of resistance training, and also in the context of just anything, unless you consume a ridiculous amount of it, like I'm talking about amounts that you would struggle to consume, like liters. And that's it, yeah. So building new muscle means making good use of the protein you consume. So what's the point of eating protein if you're not making good use of it? So you see a lot of people eat a lot of protein and they're still skinny, or a lot of people eat a lot of junk and they're still skinny. So what's going on? Maybe they have a super fast nervous system, or maybe nervous system metabolism, or maybe one of the following factors that I'm going to explain is coming into play. So making sure you absorb your protein. A lot of us aren't absorbing our protein. So to do this, you need to find a good quality source of protein, right? Preferably avoid protein combining. So avoid combining different animal products. Avoid combining animal proteins with plant proteins at the same time. Avoid eating proteins with particular enzyme inhibitors that stop you from digesting protein. So if that's an issue, you can also maybe try a supplement. Ensuring your protein doesn't digest too fast. So this whey protein isolate and these BCAAs and like all this stuff they say that gets in your blood like as fast as possible. This is actually really bad because the faster that your body's not made to digest it that fast. So actually you shit out a lot of the protein, and then also protein ends up in parts of the gut that you don't want it to be. So you're going to be feeding bacteria in your colon protein, and it doesn't know what to do with the protein, and therefore you're going to get gas and all this kind of stuff. So, but then don't take this as advice to go for slow digesting proteins, because these proteins are going to make you feel heavy. So casein, yeah, okay, fine, it's slow digesting. Yogurt, okay, it's slow digesting, but sitting in your stomach, it's stressing your stomach. If you're an athlete, your stomach's probably already stressed because you have to eat so much, right? And you don't want blood flowing to your stomach in times where you're being active, especially, okay? And you also don't want these slow digesting proteins to kind of clog up your stomach and prevent fast digesting carbohydrates from coming in, like in the context that you're going to train twice a day or something like this. Practicing fasting for more effective protein uptake. So when you fast, your body actually absorbs protein much better, and it also avoids gluconeogenesis from happening. So a big reason why I tell people to stop eating so much protein is because gluconeogenesis happens, where a lot of the protein just gets turned into sugar and it doesn't go to muscle. And the excess protein also, it becomes inflammatory and causes insulin resistance. But if you fast, it's more likely to go to muscle, more likely to be turned into muscle, and it's much more readily absorbed into your body. All right, so practice fasting, 16-hour fast, 18-hour fasts. On prolonged fasts, don't hit your stomach with protein on the first meal. Okay, but yeah, I just put that out there because I don't want people getting funny ideas. So combining proteins with other nutrients, so things that complement the protein for it to be absorbed and for it to get into the muscle. Protein intake at the correct time. So no, not 30 or 60 minutes after training, not immediately post-workout. Unless you're a bodybuilder, this might stop the catabolic process, so it might stop your body from breaking down the muscle groups that weren't being trained in the session. But as long as you're consuming sufficient protein, which is I think 0.8 grams per pound of lean body weight, is plenty for everyone, like even athletes, then you're going to be fine. So that's within 24 hours. Ensure you're not training on a full stomach. Then again, take care of your digestion so you use protein better. And you also save your nervous system. And ensure that you're not digesting and stressing at the same time. Don't consume food while you're in the car. Don't consume food and work at the same time. Like when it's time to eat, it's time to eat. You want your adrenaline to be nice and low. You want to be nice and calm. Ensure your microbiome is intact. So this is just going to prevent inflammation, which is look, if you're going to get gut inflammation and nutrients coming in at the same time, it's just going to cause a disaster for your health. It's going to cause systemic inflammation. Healthy digestive tract. Make sure you're not insulin resistant. So that means taking care of your metabolism, which we do by eating lots of healthy carbs, lots of whole foods, no processed foods, not too much fat, barely any saturated fat. Not eating past 8 o'clock, eating most of your calories at the start of the day, and ensure that you're training correctly. All right, don't train too much, don't train too little. So now the third one that's going to scare people: athletes need the ability to break down muscle. Do this via fasting, caloric restriction, or protein restriction. Actually, if you're eating healthy, your body will do this naturally. I find that I have a month that sometimes my body is just not hungry, and then the next month I'm hungry, and just listen to my body. I don't really put on any fat. So yes, I do mean getting rid of muscle. So this is necessary to prevent systemic inflammation, and the muscle that your body taps into when you're fasting or doing caloric restriction or protein restriction is often poor quality muscle, is often muscle that is causing inflammation, is often muscle that you're not actually training. So if you're not training a particular muscle, which means that it serves no real purpose for your athletic endeavors, then break it down so that your body can focus its energy and deliver all the nutrients to the muscles that you want to use. Okay, so it's like, for example, if you see cyclists, it's not like cyclists have like a huge upper body and huge legs. They only have huge legs. If they had big upper body, it would be inefficient, right? So that's just one example. It also is to help get rid of unnecessary bulk for athletes who want to maximize their power to weight ratio. That says power to rate, so it's power to weight. So this is for agility and to stay light. So this is particularly important for fighters and like tennis players, right? Consume the right amounts of fats and carbohydrates. So this is getting off the topic of breaking down muscle, so I guess I didn't structure this in my notes properly, but that's okay. Athletes need to consume the right amounts of carbs and fats. So carbohydrates are anabolic in nature, so it's not protein that just builds muscle. Fat builds a little bit, and carbohydrates extremely anabolic. Actually, you find a lot of studies where carbohydrates can be just as anabolic as protein, and carbohydrates is your muscle's best friend in terms of fuel. It's used most efficiently. It's the best way to generate power, and good healthy carbs are not going to cause insulin resistance, while protein is going to cause long-term insulin resistance. And fats, and carbohydrates it's the most familiar exogenous macronutrient to metabolize, so externally coming in macronutrients. Carbohydrates also very important for your metabolic health and for your mitochondria. There are some things in your mitochondria, some processes that just won't run unless carbs are there. And I'm talking about like antioxidant systems and all this kind of stuff. So it's really, really important. It's also very important for your mood. Carbohydrates are necessary for producing certain neurotransmitters in your brain, right? So fats will be necessary for repair and cell signaling and other functions. But on a good diet, going like high fat won't even benefit endurance athletes. So that's if you're doing a diet the way I prescribe, right? So I know this doesn't make much sense because we say endurance athletes need to eat high fat because they're burning lots of fat, like ultra marathon runners, which, yeah, it can. If you're eating a shitty diet, comparing that to your shitty diet is going to help you burn a bit more fat. But people say you have to eat fat to burn fat, but exogenous fat, so fat coming from the outside, is very different from the fat coming from like your stores. Okay, so not really going to dive into the science of this. This needs like a video of its own. But if you're eating a proper diet, if I was an ultra marathon runner, I would honestly go on my high carb diet, go slightly higher on the fats as the competition comes, then get into caloric restriction and possibly do some fasting and just tap into my my body's store fats, and then that will make me very efficient. I have one friend, he's a friend and a client that he constantly breaks his records when training in the fasted state. Yeah, so burning your own body fat, your body actually has a much easier time liberating its own body fat as opposed to taking in fat and turning that into fuel, because it has to go through a really complicated process to be turned into usable energy, unless we're talking about MCT oil, medium chain triglycerides, which are only really good for athletes that like ultra endurance athletes. Okay. All right. Oh yeah, and then this gets back to the other point. Sorry, I lost the structure a little bit here. So if we're going to summarize the breaking down muscle part, which we did veer off, you need to find a fine balance between breaking down muscle and building muscle, okay? If you're an athlete. If you're a bodybuilder, you just want to build muscle, but obviously you're putting yourself at risk for a lot of diseases. But yeah, break down enough muscle so that you're light and you're functional and you're mobile, and build enough muscle so that you become stronger, right? But then you do have some athletes that, for example, need to pack on the weight. Some basketball players, yes, but I think you should probably do that by eating extra carbohydrates, especially to not burden your digestion. Okay, the fourth point, the ability to use fuel effectively and digest fuel effectively. So I guess kind of repeating a lot of things that have already been said. So to use fuel effectively, fasting. So fasting enhances your body's ability to transition between burning fats and burning carbohydrates seamlessly. Okay, so if we go on a high-fat diet, later on we suck at burning carbs, and we actually suck at burning carbs because we clog up the muscle with fat. It's not that your body forgets how to do it. We literally clog up the muscle with fat, and it blocks the carbs from coming in. Get on a high-carb diet, you're going to be less shitty at burning fat. You'll still be able to do it compared to the opposite thing, but still not going to be ideal unless you like really follow your nutrient timing and like eat very specific carbohydrates in a very structured way. But fasting, you get the best of both worlds, and that means that you're not going to use energy to switch fuels. It means that if you're an athlete that needs endurance and explosive power, so endurance, burning fat, right? Carbohydrates is going to be for explosive power. So let's have an example of like a football player. Then you're going to need to seamlessly transition. A football player is constantly jogging around, don't want to use the precious carbohydrate stores, right? But suddenly needs to sprint, boom, they can tap into their creatine phosphate system or the carbohydrates and give you that explosive power without using up their fuel, okay? And then fasting is also going to allow you to get more energy per molecule of carbohydrate or sugar or molecule of fat, and even to an extent, like for ultra endurance athletes, protein, than those who aren't fasting. Okay, so you're going to get more energy, meaning that also you're going to need to eat less to be energetic as well. You're going to become much more efficient, and your nervous system is going to be nice and relaxed because it doesn't need to handle copious amounts of foods coming in. So don't consume too much fat, don't consume too much protein. Both can cause insulin resistance, and insulin resistance, if we can simplify it, means the inability to use your carbohydrates, but also like the inability to use fats as well. Being in good gut health, so you don't get inflammation every time you eat. Inflammation will hinder your body's ability to store and use fuel. This is subtle inflammation, by the way. It's not like you're going to eat and then like feel it immediately. You might feel it in the sense of like, I need to have a power nap now that I've eaten. That is actually a sign of poor metabolic health. But yeah, and then yeah, making sure you're actually absorbing your nutrients. Okay, so let's summarize. Right, so we talked about dampening inflammation. We talked about building new muscle and strengthening your nervous system. We talked about breaking down muscle. And we talked about the ability to effectively use fuel, digest fuel, and to be metabolically flexible. So that's a lot of inflammation. Not inflammation. It's a lot of information. Feel free to comment. Feel free to ask questions. And yeah, so this is how complicated it can get. Like, I mean, I gave a few examples of supplements and superfoods. I gave protein recommendations and all this kind of stuff, but I really can't just make a video to cover specific prescriptions, because it really depends on the athlete and on the person, and on the person's gut health and all this kind of stuff, on their goals, their lifestyle. So yeah, thank you for watching. Please give me feedback. Please tell me if I spoke too fast. Please tell me if I used too many fancy words. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed.